Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinema Flow podcast. I'm your host, Zach Abdelbaki, and today I am joined by a very special guest, writer, director, and composer, Mr. Brooks Petershack. Brooks has a new short film called The Show Must Go On, which is currently making the rounds at film festivals and will be available to watch on streaming sometime in the near future. Brooks and I will be discussing his process as a director, how he got started, and what he hopes to accomplish as a director going forward. Welcome to the show, Brooks. Thanks for making the time to do this.
Hello. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, on this show, I always like to start at the beginning. So please tell me where you were born and raised and what was your favorite movie as a kid?
Well, I was born in Greenwich, Connecticut, and raised in Newtown, Connecticut. I spent like 2 years in Paris, France when I was like a toddler. I often tell people that because it's a weird offshoot of my life because I learned French and then forgot it when I came back and nobody else spoke it. Um, but yeah, it was a great place to grow up, great place to live, and I really appreciate my time there.
Yeah. And how did you get into movies when you were young? Was it something from a very young age or kind of later on?
Yeah, my parents often took me to like see movies like every week. Like we'd see go to the movie theater every weekend. We'd have like pizza nights to watch a movie like on Sundays. And just from then on, I just got pretty much super inspired by it. Just like the imagination that was within it. Like I'd look outside my like on car rides. I'd look outside the window and I just like listen to film scores and stuff and just imagine what's going on outside or whatever. It's it was just a great a lot of imagination and I appreciated that a lot as a kid and that led me into musical theater as well, uh, which took great strides towards my artistic career probably.
Well, that's one thing we have in common actually is that we're both big theater fans. For those listening who can't see, you have a Play That Goes Wrong poster on your wall, which I really appreciate. So what was your experience like with theater growing up? Did you want to be an actor or director or composer? Like, yeah.
I think I just always wanted to be involved in the storytelling process in some way. Um, I mean, as a kid, I think I wanted to be an actor or just something on like the stage. I mean, or not on the stage even. I just wanted to be on the screen and accept Oscars and all that stuff as a kid. But and then my mom approached me about this community theater that was doing a rendition of Sleeping Beauty. And I was like, absolutely not. That is not for me. That is a girl's show. Uh, and just like all this stuff is just like, only want to do like straight plays on musical theater. And she's like, oh, you always sing in your room. Like, you always shy away when I open up the door and you're on your bed, like dancing off to a High School Musical or something. But but yeah, it was that was pretty much the start. I did not want to go. She pretty much dragged me into the audition, and I got a part as King Hubert. Which, if nobody knows who King Hubert is, I think it's Sleeping Beauty's dad, if I'm not mistaken. He has one line, and I was terrified. But I think that was the start of me kind of falling in love with, being a part of the storytelling process there. And it continued on for 30 plus shows after that, surprisingly. And then I quit pretty much after freshman year in college to go hard into film after that. But I do see it in the future. I might go back to musical theater. Who knows?
Well, it's nice because your movie actually is about a stage actor, which I'll get to in a minute. But one thing I want to ask you is, for me, there was a moment towards the end of high school where I was deciding whether to major in something theater related or something film related. Was that the same for you, or did you kind of know when you were about to head to college that you were like, okay, I want to do film school?
Yeah, yeah. There was a bit of that kind of conflict going on. because a lot of the people around me were just like, "Oh my god, like Brooks, what are you thinking going into film? Like, you spend all this time in musical theater, you've had all this training, singing, dancing, doing shows, getting recognition from that." And so I did think about it. I approached my one of my voice teachers at the time and asked about, like, applying to like Juilliard or whatever. And like I looked up the programs and I looked up like what they needed for auditions. And it just didn't feel right to me for some reason. I don't know. Just looking at the Juilliard tapes of actors just doing animal impressions. I have no like slight. There's nothing against people that I have nothing against people that use those techniques. I mean, every technique is valid if it gets you the performance that you need. But it just wasn't it just didn't float my boat per se. And so I just looked into the film more. And also a part of the kind of my psyche of that was is that I had spent all that time training with musical theater and doing all the shows and having that experience that I didn't really feel that I needed to spend all that money and time doing it more, because I didn't know how much truly I was going to get out of it, uh, compared to what I would get out of learning filmmaking, um, and just being invested in that.
I have a fun question for you. As a theater fan, is there any musical or play out there that you want to make into a movie one day?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I've chatted with my brother about this. He was into musical theater also. He's a cinematographer. People often say that I took after him, he took after me. I just want to make that. I was into film first before he did. He was into it. He wanted to be an astrophysicist first. But anyways, yeah, so he's a cinematographer and we wanted to do the show Parade, if you know that show.
I'm not familiar with Parade.
Yeah, it's not many people know it. But it's about this it takes place pretty much right after the Civil War, I'd say. And there's this Jewish businessman who moved from the Northeast down to South to Georgia, and then gets pretty worked up in all this like drama of people trying to accuse him of killing one of his workers, which he did not do, and it's all because of some like anti-Semitic sentiment in the South, as well as kind of that pride for Georgia and the people of Georgia and this outsider that is on the that is in their kind of territory. I mean, the music is beautiful and it provokes fantastic imagery, which I thought enticed me to call up my brother and say, "Hey, we should do this in the future." And he was like, "Absolutely, yes." And also, I did want to do The Color Purple, but too bad somebody else is doing it right now. And they didn't cast Cynthia Erivo as the main star, I don't think.
Oh, they didn't? I thought they did because she said she's doing movies now. I would have thought, like, why not? Like,
Yeah, yeah, I would have thought also, but
yeah.
I guess she doesn't want to do it, or they didn't approach her. I don't know, but yeah, that she would have been my first choice. But yeah, I've so like yeah, those types of shows are some things that I was considering making in the future. Uh,
Yeah, Cynthia's doing Wicked. She's gonna be Elphaba.
oh yeah, yeah, that's gonna be cool. And I heard they're doing like a two-parter for that.
I want
Oh,
to
and
ask
that I wanted to do called Ragtime.
Ragtime. That's interesting. I know I've heard of that one. I have not listened to it just yet.
Um, yeah, me and my brother did the show. He was the lead, he was cast as the lead in it in the community theater that we were in. I was only just like a little side character because I had to do another show at the time. Also, it was Legally Blonde as Callahan. Just FYI. Um, but yeah, it was a very touching show, and my brother put a lot of emotion and feelings into it that um, I thought really brought out a lot of the story beats that um, resonated with me. And so that is also musical. If anybody wants to look it up, Ragtime is phenomenal. Um, and that's something that I'd want to do in the future also.
Well, just in general, are you a big movie musical fan? Because I think that we need more of them and we need more good directors who know how to do them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain line when it comes to movie musicals, in my kind of opinion, um, where it's either for well, it depends on how seriously the artist takes it. It's either like a flash piece or like a movie that's actually, feels like a cohesive story where the music feels like it's a part of it rather than a spectacle piece. And so there's, yeah, some movies like that and some movie musicals like that that I don't appreciate as often, but I do love them. I do love them. I have, like, Singing in the Rain. We rented out a private theater to see Singing in the Rain, me and my family, one time. Yeah, I mean, it's all just about like the joy and the emotions that music bring into the movie, which is a big part of why I got into composing also, because I feel music was a big part of the storytelling process too.
Well, that's something else I wanted to ask you about because there aren't a lot of directors who also compose their own music. Well, it comes to mind is like John Carpenter and Clint Eastwood. But how long have you been a composer for your own movies and such?
For my own movies, I'd say I started composing pretty early on for my own stuff. I'd say probably my like third short I wrote the score for. But even my first one was just like a little school project, breaking down, doing a sort of like trailer, like a book trailer for this book called, oh god, what is it? Yeah, it doesn't matter. But I used some like the music in Godzilla, that was in the Godzilla movie, and I kind of like spliced it together in a certain way where it fit the movie fantastically. I mean, just splicing it in certain parts where like a measure would line up with a certain measure that was like 20 seconds down the line, just like that kind of stuff of like maneuvering music. uh I think was what first got me into the creating my own score for things.
No, that's really cool. And question, so when you write a movie and you're going to direct it, do you start thinking about the score and thinking of melodies before you film, or do you wait until you're in the editing room?
I actually I would prefer to come up with some tunes beforehand, but I know for a fact that it definitely always changes after I film it. But it still helps me a whole bunch to have to like set the tone of it. I mean, I can send you um I did this little little score preview of The Show Must Go On that I think I posted on the we have an Instagram for the short. We haven't posted anything on there for like months. Uh but one of the first things that I posted there was like a little score preview, which you could probably layer over this. But it definitely has some of that. kept a lot of the aspects of the tone, um, and really helped me kind of put together the feelings that I wanted to, or I guess the emotion that I wanted to express out of the visuals of it. You know.
Yes, and there will be a link to the movie's Instagram in the description so you can all follow to know when it's going to come out. But one more thing I want to ask you in the realm of composing is, do you ever want to make a musical and write your own score for it?
Um, wait, like an original movie musical or just
Yeah,
music?
I guess either or, but probably a movie.
Um, got a movie musical. That might be too much work for me. I don't know. I've thought about composing for like a stage musical. But the thing is, like, when you're composing for a film and that you're also writing and directing for, uh just being involved in all stages of the process like that is a little taxing. So having to come up with like a whole bunch of lyrics and things on top of that, I am not a lyrics man. I only, most of the songs that I listen to, I just like the melody of and the instrumentation and all that stuff. um but I have thought about writing um a kind of comedy musical with one of my best buddies from back in Connecticut, about Alexander the Great. What?
Alexander.
Yeah, no, no,
Well,
yeah. Kind of like a spin-off of the, or like an offshoot of the Hamilton thing, where it's just like Alexander the Great, but he's known to everybody as like a shitty guy, and then kind of redeems himself, that kind of storyline. uh, but yeah, I've thought about it. Um, I don't know how good I'd be at it. Uh, if if somebody's listening to this like 50 years down the line and I've written like a Tony Award winning musical, I'm sorry for what I've given the world.
no, that sounds awesome. I would watch that. I think, and you're right. I think it is like I can't think of a director who made a movie and did all the music and everything like for their own thing. Like even Lin-Manuel, when he directed his first movie, Tick Tick Boom, it was Jonathan Larson's musical. So I think it is like a crazy task, like write, direct, produce,
Yeah.
compose, etc. But I would
That
love to
makes
see
it a lot
this.
easier to just borrow somebody else's works and express it out your own way on the screen rather than create it all from scratch your own. um because I feel like it's got to be a super collaborative process, bringing that kind of, that amount, that whole amount of artistry into a film. I mean, going into something like writing, composing, and directing a film that you make definitely is for just you. Like, if you're just gonna be working it all yourself, doing, having a hand in everything like that. But if you're definitely a lot more cooperative and bring a lot of people, or a lot of other experiences and ideas into the equation, you're gonna find that your film resonates with a lot more people. So if I was to write a whole musical, uh, and direct it and do all this stuff to put it up on the screen myself, I feel like it might be um, a bit one-sided, uh, towards my kind of views, or what I'd like to see, which is maybe not what everybody else wants to see.
That's very insightful. I never even thought about that. You're right. I think it's like, at least for me, as someone who writes and directs a lot of my movies, that's one thing I always think about sometimes is like, is this a bit too much? Like let me in. That's why I try to like let everyone put a little bit of them into the movie, like the actors and everything. Like put your own spin on the character and stuff. Like make it, it'll make it more universal and more people will relate to the movie.
Yeah, because if there's anything I've learned from my time on this earth is that I do not always have the best ideas. So it's great to uh, get other people's stamps of approval and knowledge on your works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will say there were a lot of good ideas in your movie, which you made at Chapman, and that's one thing I want to ask you about. You said you grew up in Connecticut. Was there any hesitancy to go to the West Coast for college? And just in general, how did you end up choosing Chapman?
Yeah, there was a bit of hesitancy to go out to the West Coast. I mean, like I was looking at some schools like Emerson, NYU, and like I'd gotten into um those schools on the East Coast, but my brother went to NYU, and I remember him talking about how much he hated the city after living there for 4 years. So, and me being from Connecticut and my family going to see shows in New York City all the time, I'd myself had my own thoughts about New York City. And I know a lot of people love it, and I know a lot of people think it's a great place with lots of uh, great or unique people and experiences. But whenever I walk in there, I feel like I am. I feel like I have mildew. I don't know what how to how to say it. I feel like it's just a bit too gritty for me, and it was a bit of a jump moving from suburban Connecticut to a city. So West Coast was where I started looking a bit more. And I did apply to USC, didn't get in, no big deal. Chapman was still great, but yeah, I'd say yeah, West Coast was where I was looking. I actually only heard about Chapman after the deadline for um, the like film applications were due. So funny me, I applied still anyways, um, and they rejected me. And then I was like, "Ayo, maybe still look at my application. I just found out about this place." And then like I met with President Strupa and all that. And yeah, luckily they got me in, and I was very very glad about that. And then I just took it from there, going through Dodge.
Let's go, Stroops. Made the right call.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's interesting. I had a kind of similar situation. I applied to Emerson, NYU. I really wanted NYU because I again wanted to be near Broadway because I didn't get to go to all the shows growing up. I went like once. I tried to go once a year in the summer and just watch like five in a row, but it was I never lived there and I always wanted to live there. Didn't get in, but honestly, yeah, I love Chapman. I think it's a great school, very freaking expensive. But yeah, and so you
I
said
don't know if I connected the thoughts that I made earlier, but like, yeah, it's Chapman is for those who don't know what the place looks like. It's a very boutique town of Orange City, um, and so that kind of switch from the suburban Connecticut to that was much more pleasant to me than jumping straight into a city. Um, so I felt like that was a great environment for me to kind of ease into California.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. You said you might be going to grad school. That's interesting. That's fun. Or what are you gonna major if you go, are you gonna major in directing again or are you gonna switch it up?
Yeah, I heard about USC has a master's screen scoring program in which they have a full ride scholarship for black composers, or one black composer who also gets a guaranteed apprenticeship with Hans Zimmer's company, Bleeding Fingers.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, which I think is a great opportunity that I have to take up on. So yeah, I'm gonna take them up.
Well, knock on wood, fingers crossed. I hope you get it, man. That's freaking awesome. I took his master class online when I was like in high school just to learn about scoring. I'm not a composer, just wanted to learn about it. And yeah, he's I mean he's talented as hell, so I'm sure his company is good.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's I have a lot of respect for him and his kind of way of experimenting with music. I mean, a lot of what I've learned with composing or working with sounds, I guess, within my uh, my music writing software, Logic, was trying to emulate the things that he was doing, um, or like do something like Dune, uh, try to figure out what the hell synths he was using, or something like that, or trying to figure out why he used it. Stuff like that kind of really taught me a lot about, um, I guess, expression and within creativity of sound design,
Yeah.
which I think takes a lot into heart.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the things about certain scores, including Hans Zimmer's, that I love is when the sound design and the music are kind of married and they kind of blend into one another. It doesn't need to be not all scores need to be like that. Obviously, not something like La La Land, but I think when you watch like The Dark Knight Rises, I think that's really cool. That's something he does.
Yeah, and one of the things that I appreciated in Dune was like a lot of the percussion that he used was just like sounds of machines clanking or the sand stomper uh, that was just actual just sound design in the movie, which I think contributed a lot towards the kind of futuristic sound that he was going for.
Before we get into your movie, last thing I want to ask you is what are some of your favorite movies and some of the directors that influenced you?
Oh boy. Well, I don't really keep like a full permanent list of favorite movies, but the things that right now are at the top of my list would be um There Will Be Blood. Somebody told me this was like a red flag recently for some reason that this is a very film bro movie, but I saw it in high school um in my writing about film class, and it really showed me a lot about depths in movies. I mean, I wasn't allowed to watch R-rated movies for like the longest time, so seeing that like as one of like the first R-rated movies that you can see, um, really opens up your mind of the types of like character dynamics you can use in movies. Um, and so also um, another one that I was a big movie for me was Interstellar.
Mm,
I saw it in IMAX on my birthday, and I was blown away by both the score and the visuals in that. I'd never seen anything like that, really. And so, yeah, that was phenomenal to see, and it will forever be a core memory in my movie making brain. And then another favorite, I'd have to say, it would be The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Do you know that?
yeah. No, those are great picks, man. I
It's great performances, and then it's that, and then oh God, what is it? Oh, Once Upon a Time in the West.
ooh,
Yeah, Sergio Leone. I took like a 1 month binge of going through his spaghetti westerns, um, just like at home, and it was a blast, and that was probably my favorite.
nice. Yeah, you clearly. I think you do like movies with good scores because the Interstellar score and all the Leone ones are like some of the best ever,
Yeah.
especially Leone. I mean, the Morricone.
Ennio Morricone is one of my, if not my favorite composer of all time. He's everything he's written is just beautiful.
Yeah. And anyone out there who thinks that There Will Be Blood is a red flag can go to hell. I heard the same thing
Oh,
about Someone told me the same thing about liking Tarantino. I'm like, he's like one
a
of the
good
top,
movie.
yeah. He's like top five favorite directors ever for most people. So it's like who what are they saying? That's crazy. And I do think like your first R-rated movie does influence you a lot. And I actually my parents didn't care. So my first one was when I was 12 and it was Ted in theaters. You know,
Oh wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the first R-rated movie I saw in theaters was me and my friend. We snuck out of Daddy's home uh because it was not very enticing to us, and we walked into the Hateful Eight.
That's such a good first R-rated movie. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was great. I loved it. It was a blast.
Yeah, and Morricone again, like one of his last movies.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That I maybe that's what got me into him from the start. Um, was his score in that, which is still fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, you went right in the deep end. There's like tons of blood and guts and
Oh no,
a
yeah,
brain explodes like when they shoot.
yeah. Like I'd
Crazy.
seen some R-rated movies like with friends at like other people's houses, but like that was the first one that I saw in theaters. So
Nice. Well, I want to get into your movie. The show must go on. Please tell everyone what it's about. What's the log line?
all right, so it's a bit weird to describe, but the logline that I normally tell people is that it's about a stage actor who gets seemingly trapped in this sort of endless play. But once you watch it, you kind of figure out more of what's really going on and kind of the inner workings of our main character. Yeah.
Yes, it's kind of like a puzzle that all comes together at the end, so I don't want to spoil anything for people. But just tell me, how did it get started? I mean, I know it's your thesis film at Chapman, but like where did the idea come from?
It was a long, long process of kind of many, many changes of the original idea. I think I had first thought about. Well, all right, I'll spoil this for now. It's he's in a coma. That's a big part of the how I approached it. Um, is that the main character's in a coma and he has to work something out, which is what we kind of see visually. That was the first kind of idea um, I had for it, which was about a year before year and a half or so before we filmed it. It was just this little idea of a guy who ends up in a car crash and has to go through his family home and in his coma working through like his memories before he decides whether to stay or go and all that kind of stuff. And then interestingly enough, the script changed a whole lot right after that first thought, even though in the end that's what it kind of ended up circling back to. I kind of turned it into this weird thriller of a person going through an asylum and all the workers there are trying to convince him of these weird crazy things, or they're all like actors that are in on this kind of oh, what's the movie, the Jim Carrey, the
Man on the Moon or no?
dome,
The
the
Andy
people are
Kaufman one.
watching him.
Oh, The Truman Show.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was a very Truman Show esque idea at first, because it was a person that was in an asylum and all the people working there were trying to, I guess, fix him through means of lying to him in some way. Kind of like Shutter Island in that way. And so I thought that was very intriguing at the time, because I was like, ooh, all this little intrigue and lies and twists and turns and all this stuff. But it got very, very much away from the original, I guess, theme that I really wanted to tackle at the time. And so I think when it started to kind of refine itself, or when I started to figure out what I actually wanted to do with the story, or where what I actually wanted to say with the story, was because of I was graduating, because it was my last year at college and last year of education before going into like the real world. So it was a kind of reflection of my fears of, I guess, moving forward, if that's a thing. And so I pretty much took that in stride once I realized that, and really injected it into the screenplay, trying to figure out where I can actually take that. And so it became more and more over time an expression of my inner thoughts, rather than me trying to make something fun and kooky and twisty and turny. It became more of a, like a thought piece, you know. And I'm very glad it did, because I learned a lot about myself while writing it, and a lot of the dialogue and thoughts that were within it were thoughts sometimes that I was thinking at the time. So it kind of was a bit therapeutic to write it, to write that kind of storyline for it.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, how did your experience as a stage actor in the past inform the story?
Oh yeah. So yeah, part of the original process, I wanted to. All right, but let me first explain how I how my ideas normally work on these projects. I have like a book or notes on like my phone, computer, notepad, wherever. It's all over the place, of all these different ideas. And sometimes I flesh them out, sometimes I don't, sometimes I pass on them, or sometimes I just think it's interesting and then start to merge it with a different idea that I had at the same time, which is what this kind of is what which is kind of what happened with the show must go on. Was that I wanted to do something that worked with theater, that incorporated some of my theater experience, and then I also wanted to do something that made a bit of like a statement, or had some type of theme that resonated with me. So the coma thing was what drew me into combining those two stories of the coma and something to do with the show. I remember one of the first ideas about doing something with the show was that I wanted something to happen in the intermission of a stage play, because normally that's 15 minutes. The short's 15 minutes. It would be interesting if it was all real time in that moment. Starts with people walking into the wings, ends with people walking out on the stage. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting idea. And I tried fleshing out something that would happen during those 15 minutes that would make it any bit interesting to watch. But I wasn't really coming up with much. I mean, in my experience, intermissions are never quite eventful. So it was hard to figure out something that would create such a big conflict that could be resolved also, or resolved in an interesting way by the end. And so that's what led me to combine the two ideas and kind of work out something that was less restricted to time and more focused on kind of the backstage environment and the whole process of somebody being in a coma, them being in the backstage, I guess, of their life. You know, when they're awake, they're on stage and they have the lights on them and all that type of stuff. But when they're asleep, they're in the back workings. You don't know what's really going on back there. And so I thought it would be a great kind of metaphor, you know, between the two, of just like a stage actor kind of working on something behind the scenes, in the backstage of his mind and his memory before he decides to, you know, enter out, do the show, continue on with it, or not. So yeah.
Oh man, that's really cool. I mean, you're making me want to rewatch it again. I feel like every time I see it, I'm gonna get more out of it each time. That's really cool. I love the framing idea of like the 15-minute intermission for the 15-minute piece. I didn't even think of that. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There were some times that I wish that I figured out something that would fit in that time or would make sense happening in that time. I think I had like original one of the original screenplays focused on him receiving like a call that he got like brain cancer diagnosis and during intermission, and then had to decide whether to continue or not. And then people were just like, "Oh, who receives a brain cancer diagnosis on a call during intermission of a show?" And I was like, "You're right. You're right. That is weird." So yeah, it was very tricky to figure out something that like you would make sense, and fit within those guidelines.
Yeah, and
But
I think it's a cool framing device. I think someone should use it. But I think like the way you ended up making it is like the best way. And honestly, one thing I'll say is that for a short film, it feels big in scope. Like
yeah,
yeah, I think especially like towards the end when you're in the memorial hall for people who know Chapin, but like the big theater, like it just felt like an epic for something on a
yeah.
$9,000 budget.
Oh yeah, I will always be proud of that ending. For a while, that was our last day of filming, and it was a sequence that I've always kind of been like iffy on whether like to keep it in the script or not. Um, but I always had a very very specific kind of vision for it, and we managed to accomplish it that day, to a T. I was blown away. We got like full use of the theater's lights, and we had all like the lighting technicians working closely with us to make sure that everything went exactly how we wanted it to go. And that was, I'd never experienced something like that. It was phenomenal working on that.
Yeah. I want to ask you about your actors because I really like them, especially Sophie, who I briefly know. I love her line, like her monologue towards the end and the line, but the sun kept rising. Like that whole like minute of the movie is just so good. Like so like the way you wrote that is just perfect. But tell me for both your lead actors and everyone in the ensemble, how did you find them and what was it like working with them?
I think most of the people that we found were from the kind of Chapman Casting Connection, like Facebook group where we post our log lines and character descriptions, and people comment and reach out and stuff. I remember Sophie, when she auditioned, she is too humble almost, to the point where she doesn't even realize she's a good actress. Funnily enough, but she went in for her audition, and I at the end of it, my mouth was agape, and I didn't know what to say to her. I mean, she fit the role perfectly, and same thing happened with our lead actor Michael. He was, when he came in as when he did his audition, we did it all on Zoom, so there's a bit of like a weird barrier there, but he managed to kind of create a frame within his own screen that really really worked well for the performance that he put off. He had a mirror in the background of his shot, which sometimes he would turn to, so you could get the full like angle of expression whenever he like moved around. I could always see what was going on in his face, and I really appreciated that. And he seemed to attack it with very uh knowledgeable, very serious way, where even though these were like words like I wrote on the page and words that like I had thought in my head. He kind of made him his own, and I really appreciated that. And working with him on set, he always had his own ideas, which were great, and uh, he really bounced off well with Sophie. They worked really, really well together, and just making the script as flow, just making the script flow as easily as possible, or making things sound as natural as can be, or as real as could be. And it was great to see them work.
Yeah. As a man of theater, do you rehearse a lot with your actors, or do you kind of do like everyone else, you just prep on the day?
I love rehearsal. I don't think I'll ever not rehearse a scene because I love just working out different ways to approach lines, different way to approach like the speed of the scene. Just playing around with it in any way possible. That's where I find a lot of the joy in rehearsal, and also having the actors there and being able to bounce ideas off of them without the constraint of like we have to get this shot in the next like 10 minutes, like all that kind of stuff. It's great to have rehearsal time, even though I know there's people that say like, oh, like some performances might be wasted on rehearsal, but I never really let things go too in depth in rehearsal. I just mostly work on like the kind of bare bones, making sure they understand what's going on, making sure of like different ways they can attack it, for when we actually do film it, because I don't want anything to be any energy or any performance to be wasted, or for me to see anything in the rehearsal that I'm just like, well, why didn't you do that when we shot the film? Or that would make me just super kind of crossed about what we actually did end up filming. So, yeah, I like rehearsal, but I like to keep it kind of short and sweet.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way of going about it. Um, you did make this movie in film school, so what is the biggest lesson you learned on the movie?
Oh boy, um, God, I think I learned a lot about just working with the crew. I mean, I've worked a lot with actors before, having done theater, but I mean, I never really got to do my AP, my advanced production film in Dodge. I did like a separate kind of thing instead of it. So this was my first project working with like a crew of like over 10 people. So it was it was a bit of a shock for me, but it was a fantastic learning lesson for kind of working with people and realizing their needs, and recognizing the great ideas that they come with, and really, making them invested in all the more.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Now the movie is on the film festival journey. So have you had the chance to see it with an audience outside of Dodge? And if so, what was it like seeing it with an audience?
I have not yet. I know they screened it in Connecticut at this festival that I got into, but I could not get a flight there soon enough. So I was not in attendance for that. But it would be great to see it when in a theater with an audience, again in the future. I don't know at the moment if we have anything else lined up in the future, but it's always great to see people, react to it and
Yeah. What was the
be.
Dodge premiere like? Like, was it, were you nervous? Or I've never seen any of my movies with an audience, but I can imagine it's like, yeah,
I mean, yeah, the thing with dramas, you never really expect too much with the audience. I mean, if you got a comedy, uh, then you can get a lot of the audience play from that, like audience feedback of the laughs and all stuff like that. But mine was never really like really begging for much reaction per se. But it was great seeing it in theater. We had a little bit of a problem mixing it to the theater. I think it showed in mono instead of stereo, which was sad, but it was still nonetheless just seeing it on the big screen and hearing the score through those speakers like that. It was a great experience.
Yeah, I bet. That's awesome. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you as well about the movie you composed titled Forgive Me, Father, directed by Christian Carrera, our former classmate. What was that experience like, and what is that movie about?
Yeah, so it's about a priest that is working through a bit of a kind of grief that he's experienced in his life and working through what it means to forgive somebody for causing that grief that he's had to live with in that life.
Help me connect again with your spirit and your love. Protect me and heal me. Amen.
It was a great opportunity working on that, working with Christian. He was my freshman year roommate at
Mm.
college. So yeah, it was going into it. I knew a lot about like what he was expecting and the type of things that he was into. So I think that helped a lot with figuring out the score that he needed for it. I
Yes.
actually wrote two completely different scores for it. I wrote one pretty much after filming, um, after he filmed the short. I had the privilege of working as a first AD on that, so being able to see it all filmed there was a great opportunity um, to work out the composing for and like all the themes and the type of tone that I thought would be expressed in the film. And so after it was filmed, I wrote a score pertaining all to like the first cuts that he sent me, and I showed it to him, and he loved it, but he said it was too big, which was valid because I can tend to get that way with certain projects if I get a little too worked up in the theme that I like. But pretty much what he wanted after what I showed him was something much smaller, much more contained, much more intimate, um, a little less melodic. And so I thought, all right, great. I'm going to go into it and we're going to work this out, see if maybe I can make some slight changes. And it turned out that it did not work just making slight changes. I had to redo the whole entire thing. And the film was due in 3 days. So so yeah, I managed to pull it together. I spent like a whole 2 days nonstop in audio mix suite at Chapman working on it. And so that was a even though it was a hard time, it was a great learning experience for composing on the fly and taking themes that I put in the film before with different instrumentations and then reworking them to conform to what he wanted for the vision of the short. And so, yeah, it was, and I managed to pull it off, and I'm very proud of how it turned out. And so I think I learned a great deal from that. I do have to say.
That's very interesting. And one thing I actually want to ask you about is I think that most people think of movie composing as like John Williams in front of a 50-piece orchestra or whatever, but when we're doing these movies in film school, you're often doing it on the softwares that, for idiots like me, you'll just call it like GarageBand, but the extremely complicated version of that. So how does that work for you, and what are your favorite instruments to use when you're composing something like that?
I started out with a lot of free stuff from Spitfire Labs. They have a lot of free instrument samples that worked really great earlier off, and so I put them and I use them in Logic with this MIDI keyboard that I have, and I'm able to control the expressions and everything on the fly as I'm playing them out. Sometimes when I know what I'm playing, sometimes if I don't know what I'm recording, I have to enter it in manually. But I love using this new instrument sample that I got for a lot of the shorts that I did towards the end of my senior year, which was the BBC Symphony Orchestra. It was a whole $1,000 instrument sample pack, which was over like 300 gigabytes of stuff. But it sounds super real, and it works very, very well to try and match up the score to a good, solid instrumentation. And a lot of what I learned with trying to make things sound real come from emulating certain composers like that. I remember I have the How to Train Your Dragon score, like the full score for it. And one time in one of my classes, I just felt like doing it. I just took one of the cues and put them into Logic note for note, trying to emulate and trying to match up, the realness of both the original recording and what I was putting into Logic. And so playing around with a lot of the expressions in Logic and a lot of the sound design within it, and working those synthesized instruments to make them sound real is where a lot of, I guess, my orchestral intuitiveness comes from.
What projects do you have coming up as a composer? Because I know one of them is a movie that we are indirectly working on together, because I produced a movie that you're going to compose, right?
Is it? I don't know which one.
Creative Reasoning, Katie Isherwood.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna be composing for that very shortly. Once I have a meeting with the sound designer, we'll get on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm gonna be working on that short, as well as a couple other Dodge theses, and then there's this one MFA pilot, kind of like Game of Thrones / vampire style, that I thought would be very interesting to compose for, which I am currently in talks for. But yeah, those kinds of projects I have lined up for the future. But most of what I'm going to be focusing on for the next month is putting together my application for that USC grad study that I would like to get.
Yes, and best of luck on that. I want to ask actually one last thing is, for someone like me who's a director who's never worked with a composer, how should a director go about explaining what they want in the score to the composer?
Mm. So I feel if you approach the dialogue with a certain understanding of where the composer is coming from, then you're able to communicate a lot more efficiently. Say if a lot of composers will absolutely know what you're talking about when you use certain emotional words, certain words that emphasize the tone that you like to display, and the type of instrumentation. There's no need to really send any like voice samples of you singing a little ditty that you had in the morning or something. Just as long as you let the composer know the type of tone and the emotion and the moments that you want to hit and the type of references that you'd like to kind of tread along, then I think you're in a good deal. I think then you'll have a good partnership there.
Yeah. No, that's good to know. I will definitely think about that in the future.
There is one moment I gotta say. There's one little experience I do want to talk about, which was going to um, the one time I went to one of the only live concerts I've ever been to was Hans Zimmer in New York City, and I know a little like I know a lot of people like music for the beats, being able to dance to it, and like the and all like the lyrics and being able to resonate with that and how it pertains to your life. But there has to be something said about how just music in general, in any form, can affect you emotionally. And once you realize that, like once I realized that at the Hans Zimmer concert, just hearing instruments play in whatever expression that they like to, or just in something that's not even what some people might call music, but it still like affects you, still like vibrates your bones still, of like the bass that I heard in that concert. Just knowing how music affects you emotionally and realizing that, I think, is what a lot of directors can probably bring into their talks with composers. Just if you know what note connects to the emotion that you like to convey. I know how I approach a lot of the music that I write is like a musical dialogue. I think Hans Zimmer said it sometimes where there's a little like phrase that can be like a question, or a phrase that can be an answer, but it doesn't even have to work down to phrases. It's just from one note to the other. It can they each note, each possibility has a different effect on the emotions that you're feeling in the moment. So I think once you know that, then you're able to really work with music in any way to express whatever you want.
Yeah. I think for most directors who like don't know anything about music theory, like they like for me, like I don't know how to say like what note I like will express the emotion, but I think maybe the key is just talk to the composer about what the story means to you and what emotion you want to evoke. Basically, like similar to what you're talking about with the actors, just talk about what you're trying to achieve in this scene.
Yeah.
And
Like
also
the composer will know what note transcribes to what emotion, or like what chord will fit best for the emotion that you want to convey. But as long as you know the exact emotion that you want, then he can translate that for you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to ask you, do you have any advice for bright-eyed, bushy-tailed freshmen heading into film school for the first time this fall?
Oh boy. I guess try anything. This is film school. You don't make your masterpiece. Too many people get worked up on. Oh, these big budget APs, IPs, thesis, $10,000 we got to spend on this shoot for no reason. Nobody's gonna ask you what your film school movies were. Nobody really. Well, except you, Zach. Thanks, Zach. But nobody really is going to care too much in the real world. Nobody really asks like what Scorsese's thesis was at NYU. It's just a great learning opportunity all around to understand what you as an artist appreciate and value in your art and your expression, and what you want to put out there, and what you like to see in the world, and what you want to express to the world of what you want to see. And
Wise words. Oh, sorry.
trying all that, that's what film school's all about.
Well, with that said, Brooks, I want to thank you so much for making the time to do this. This has been such a fun episode. I'm so glad I got to have you on. Before we go, please let everyone know where they can follow you on all the socials and keep up to date with what's going on with your movies.
Well, all right. I don't really use social media too much, but on Instagram, you can find me at Brookshack. That is BROOKSHACK. It's a weird thing. I don't add two S's there, and it always fucks me up when I want to read through it. But the short Instagram handle will be TSMGo 2022. If you want
Yes.
to follow that for some updates on the film, we might be posting updates there in the future. Who knows? But yeah, if you do want to watch the film, you can always reach out to me personally and I will send a link. Thank you.
Yes. And if anyone wants to reach out because they need a composer to work on their movie,
Of course, of course. Reach out to me at bcpcomposer@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Oh, and also look me up on YouTube and you'll find my reel. Thank you.
hell, hell yeah, I'll have links to all that in the description. But with that said, have a good day, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show. Please make sure to leave us a review if you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back next week with more fun movie chats. But until then, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye bye.